All right, today's adventure is going to be to explore the Spotsylvania Battlefield here in Virginia. That was a battle in May of 1864 in the American Civil War, and it lasted for about 2 weeks. Right now we're standing at Todd's Tavern site, which would be right behind me here, I believe, the original building. This is an area that the cavalry of both armies clashed, Confederate and Union, right here. The Confederate cavalry slowed down the Union Army's advance to Spotsylvania, allowing the Confederate Army to get there first and block the path of the Union advance. So it was pretty critical here, the delaying action to Lee's army. 2 days before this, or May 5th and 6th, was the Battle of the Wilderness. So both armies were leaving the wilderness and racing to Spotsylvania. And right here at Todd's Tavern, the famous General George Armstrong Custer was involved here, along with many others. And of course, his command would be annihilated at the Little Bighorn about 12 years later. So welcome to Spotsylvania Battlefield. This is May 7th. Action was right here at Todd's Tavern. And we're going to head down to Spotsylvania. This is the Corbin Bridge crossing of the Po River. Lee's army would be heading south on the road just behind me here. So this was key that the Confederate cavalry hold this area, and they did, to allow Lee's entire army to head south to Spotsylvania. We're traveling along Robert E. Lee Drive, heading towards Spotsylvania. I think this was called the Shady Grove Church Road at the time of the battle. Lee's entire army would be marching along this road on their way to Spotsylvania. This is the Po River right here, and we're standing on the Blockhouse Bridge. And this would have been the left flank of the Confederate Army during the Battle of Spotsylvania, guarding this bridge, protecting the flank. We're standing here on Laurel Hill, and this is the spot that the 7th Maryland Infantry was very proud that it was their nearest approach to the impregnable Confederate lines here. So we're going to walk out on this trail into the field here at Laurel Hill. I reached this spot by coming up a street called Pritchett Road or something like that, Pritchett Drive. But you could also get to this point by walking the Laurel Hill Trail. I'm not sure the complete distance of that trail. It might be like 1.2 miles or so. But we're going to walk out into the field here. Union would have attacked straight toward this position where we are now. So we'll go out in there, see what we find. And we've reached the site of the Spindle House. That was owned by a widow, Sarah Spindle. The house was destroyed. She survived the battle, but I don't think she ever returned to this area. So many families had their lives just turned upside down by the battles just crossing in their backyard. The Union troops would have come from this side, would have crossed from right to left in the picture. Here is the tablet for the Spindle House. And the Union would have charged repeatedly for days, several days, across these fields to the Confederate lines in those woods beyond. This is mostly Union 5th Corps in this area. Could not penetrate the Confederate lines here. All right, we're going to continue our tour. The Spindle House is, as you can see, right between the two lines. So the Confederates just bombarded it with cannon fire, so the Union could not use it for sharpshooters or protection. And Sarah Spindle lost her home and lost her farm. And I'll give you one panorama from the Spindle House site of Laurel Hill. We're looking back at the Union lines beyond these woods. I don't know where the wood line was during the time of the battle, but here is Laurel Hill at Spotsylvania Battlefield. It's a beautiful, peaceful day out here today, April 20th, 2026. We're now going to head over to the Park Tour Road area. We'll pick up from over there. First, I'll just give you one last shot as we walk toward the Confederate lines on Laurel Hill. Confederate lines are in that wood line. Okay. And the Maryland Monument that we saw earlier is straight up this path in the woods right there. Well, we're here at Tour Stop 1, which is the Spotsylvania exhibit. And lots of information here on the battle. You see that the first couple of days, May 8th to 10th, lots of attacks on Laurel Hill. And we'll be looking at Upton's attack later. And then the big breakthrough at the Muleshoe on May 12th. All right, so we'll be taking a look at that today. This is my first visit here to Spotsylvania Court House Battlefield, so we'll do the best we can. Let's go take a look to our left here. Looking back toward Laurel Hill, I'm going to go to a spot where General Sedgwick was killed by a Confederate sharpshooter. Sedgwick was the commander of the 6th Corps Union Army. So Sedgwick's headquarters were just behind us here, and when there was a commotion in this area just a few feet away from his headquarters, he moved forward here and tried to reassure a private next to him that the Confederates, as he said, couldn't hit an elephant at this distance. And on the third shot, John Sedgwick was killed on May 9th, 1864. So right in front of us here is the Brock Road. And again, it was this area that the Confederates blocked so the Union Army could not continue south. So the Confederate lines are out there in the wood line. This here is Laurel Hill right in front of us. And we are at Tour Stop 2. We're going to follow what's called Upton's Trail. We're starting right here, walking through the woods to the monument, and then right up to the Confederate earthworks here. And Colonel Upton was an officer in the 6th Corps Union Army. He took about 5,000 troops down this road on May 8th, May 10th, 1864. They were handpicked, 12 regiments, and they attacked the earthworks here in a block formation, which proved successful at first. They broke through the earthworks, but then Confederate reinforcements rushed to the area and drove Upton out. But he did have some success in penetrating these Confederate lines that the Union could not succeed at over at Laurel Hill. So this gave General Grant the idea that if we do this again with more troops, we should have more success. So it was right here that the troops formed up for the attack. They're right at the edge of the wood line in 1864. I believe there's quite a few more woods today. And they moved forward, charging about 200 yards from here to the Confederate earthworks. Hope you can read this. It says, "A memorial to the brave and daring young men who fought in Upton's charge, May 10th, 1864, and all the regiments are listed there. We have men from many states in the north right here. On the reverse side of this monument are listed the Confederate defenders, 4 brigades of the 2nd Corps. So this is an attack on what's called the Muleshoe. As most anybody who's watching this video know, that was the extended earthworks of the Confederates that extended out into a giant salient. And so on May 9th or so, I guess it was May 9th, that the Confederates began to extend their lines from Laurel Hill out into this area, creating the Muleshoe that Upton attacked on the very next day. Up to the earthworks. Alright, and here are the Confederate earthworks right in front of us. What remains, you can see a small little ditch right in here. And the main earthworks here. This was what's called the Doles Salient. Doles is a commander in the Confederate Army. Fought at Gettysburg and elsewhere. And this here is part of the Muleshoe Salient that the Confederates started building on May 9th. Very next day, Upton assaulted. Pretty good print here. There it is, the scene of Upton's assault. Broke through here. We'll spin around, take a look behind me. It would have broken through into this area, and we're driven back out. There were soldiers from both armies that spoke about this battle here at Spotsylvania as being even more terrible, it's hard to believe, they said, than Gettysburg and other battlefields. So I recommend that you purchase a book, read about this. I'm no full expert here, but there's Gordon Ray's book, Spotsylvania and Yellow Tavern. I'd recommend picking that up, reading it. Get a lot more in depth of what happened here. So to try to give you a little perspective, straight in the center of the picture there are the tablets where we were for Upton's charge. And he charged with 3 regiments across. So they would have swept from right to left here across these fields into the Confederate earthworks there. Then on the next day, May 11th, Grant and Meade gathered their troops, about 20,000, moved them over to this area, to the Muleshoe, a little bit to the left of where Upton charged. So they spent that day organizing, May 11th. And then during the night it rained badly, May 11th, May 12th, a lot of rain. And the Union attacked very early in the morning on the 12th. Hancock, 2nd Corps, and others, and they broke through in this area, broke through big time, captured nearly an entire division, Johnson's division of the Confederate 2nd Corps. Johnson himself, General Johnson, was captured along with General Stuart. And this was a very fierce and ferocious battle that lasted about 24 hours. Close contact. Here's a print. It was nasty. I can't even imagine. We're going to walk this 1.1 mile loop and see what we can learn. Well, again, this is my first visit here, but it appears to me that this entire area from this New York monument, 49th New York and the 15th New Jersey, to reach that position there, to those monuments. Here are some Confederate earthworks in front of us. All out in this field across this whole entire area is where the main attack took place. The bloody angle is this hill area, it appears to me. Here's some earthworks. I think you can see them even on this camera. So we're just going to stroll around a bit. I think I'm going to head maybe what's considered backwards on this road. Let's head over this way on this trail. Let's head over this way. Intense fighting here. The bloody angle at Spotsylvania. Yep, so this area is the bloody angle. Walking over the Confederate earthworks here, looking down the line. Okay, and we're moving over towards what's called the east angle. And I know the night before the attack on May 11th, Lee thought the Union might be moving to his right. So he pulled, I think, 30 cannon out of this area and realized too late that the Union was going to assault at this position. He brought some back, but I believe many of them were captured. So we'll look down the east angle here. Here's another look down the line of the bloody angle from the Union side of the entrenchments. We're going to go down the trail just a little bit in this direction, just to see the lay of the land here. If you notice, it's very undulating, and there are accounts of the Union troops retreating and recovering down in these little swales, reforming and coming up again, as this battle lasted all day and night. And the Confederates did, the short version, they did get reinforcements into the area, drive the Union back a bit, and then Lee formed a new line down by the just east, I guess, of the Harrison House. So we'll take a look at that later. He abandoned this vulnerable position, but look at the swales here. If we look back, you can see how you'd have some cover from the fire. Can't see those earthworks anymore. I'm standing here on the grounds of the Landrum House. This was the extreme left of the Union assault on the Muleshoe, and there were Confederate picket reserves in this area that were overwhelmed when the attack started early in the morning. As the battle progressed, General Hancock of the 2nd Corps made his headquarters here. So we're walking along the Union battle line right now. as they assaulted the Muleshoe. We'll just take this out a little bit. We're actually heading back toward the Bloody Angle. So the trees in the distance there, that would be the Muleshoe. Way out in here. Bloody Angle is to this area. 20,000 Union troops sweeping across the scene from right to left. There you can see a swale in the ground. So this gives you a little bit of a lay of the land, and as always at these places, you have to let your imagination kick in. Even though the landscape is beautiful, let that imagination kick in. We're standing at the site of the Harrison house. The Harrison family lived here, husband, wife, 3 young children. And suddenly they were told there's going to be a battle, and the Confederate battle line formed right in their front yard here and moved forward. Could you imagine? And the family left, and they survived the war, and they came back. The house survived, but it burnt down years later. Lee also arrived in this area right here, and as the Muleshoe was collapsing, he was trying to lead troops to the front, and for the 3rd time in a week they grabbed his reins of his horse and they turned him around. I said, Lee to the rear, and the troops moved forward. I think Gordon's brigade, and they moved up and they reestablished the east angle that had collapsed. So Lee made his final defensive line right across the front here. I would imagine near where those bushes are, right near the road, or maybe a little beyond. And that was his final line in this area of the battlefield at Spotsylvania. And that held for about another week, and then the armies retired south. So we're going to move over to the McCoull House next. That's in the middle of the Muleshoe. We'll take a look at that. Alright, so I took a little detour down Anderson Drive. It ends at this point, but we have these reconstructed earthworks from Lee's final line to the left of the Harrison house, and it gives you a little idea of the construction. You'll notice the headrail there where you could put a musket underneath. Right in here. Alright, so a little visual aid to help us. It looks like Grant did attack one more time on May 18th in this area, but he was repulsed. If I remember right, they didn't even get close enough to fire the rifles. It was really just artillery that drove them back. But you can read about that. He called off the attack pretty quickly. Here's the McCoull House site. We're at tour stop 5 on the tour. This house had 4 residents at the time of the battle. There was a man, Neil McCoull, with his 3 sisters that lived here, Mary, Eliza, and Millie. And he was absent at the time of the battle, but the ladies hid in the basement during the battle, and they made it. They survived, and they came up after the battle was over. They could not believe the devastation. We cannot even imagine it. I can't. I think there were 1,500 Union soldiers buried here after the battle, and I think most of them, if not all, were reinterred. And Confederate number buried here is unknown. I think some may be at the Spotsylvania Cemetery, so there could very well be lots of remains here on the battle. We have to keep that in mind. Okay, shows how we're right in the center of the Muleshoe. Here's the Muleshoe going all the way around. We're in the center. The Harrison House is behind us. Lee's final line is in between. All right, we're going to move on our tour. There's a monument out here to our left. Let's go walk out there and take a look. This monument here was erected in 2001 to honor the North Carolinian troops from Ramser's Brigade that fought here on May 12th. McCoull House would be out there. You might see the car parked and the tablet. All right, this is tour stop 5. We're heading on to 6, which is the east angle. Okay, we are here at tour stop 6, the east angle. This map might help you see where we are. Here is where we are in the east angle. The bloody angle is over here. Upton came through here on May 10th. We walked paths here out to the Landrum House, way out there. And here is the McCoull House, which we just left. Notice how it's in the center of that salient. And the Harrison House is down here somewhere. Okay, so right in this area is where Generals Johnson and General Stewart were captured early on the morning of the 12th. Somewhere out there, as this area was overrun. More Confederate trenches here. So we're going to head over to tour stop 7, Heth's Salient. And we are at Heth's Salient. He was a division commander for the Confederate Army. And on the afternoon of May 12th, you can see here that Grant ordered Union troops from the Union 9th Corps to attack the salient right here. At the same time, unknowns to him that Grant launched the attack, Lee had 2 brigades come out and attack the line here. So Burnside was driven back, hitting the front and the flank. And from what the sign says, it lasted maybe 30 minutes. But in that time, the Confederates took about 800 prisoners back with them. This is a monument put up to the 17th Michigan. This is the extreme left of the Union line. And we're on the right of the Confederate line here. We're at tour stop 8, which is right on the intersection of the Fredericksburg Road. I think that's now Route 208. There was one more action here, at least. There was one on May 14th at Myers Hill. I don't know much about that one. And then there was also one more action at the Harris Farm on May 19th when, before the armies pulled out, Lee tried to be aggressive again and attack the Union lines. And he advanced men up to Harris Farm, and there was a fight up there, but Lee's men were driven back, so they came back to their lines here. And both armies pulled out of here on the 21st, I believe, of May. Well, we're standing at what's left of the Harris Farm. This is where a regiment of 1st Massachusetts Heavy Artillery, serving as infantry, stopped Lee's last attempt to cut the Union off from the Fredericksburg Road. So as this says, they lost almost 400 men within an hour, but they held, and Confederate forces under General Ewell were turned back, and the Union maintained their supply line of the Fredericksburg Road. This was on May 19th. And so 2 days later, the armies moved south. Okay, we're going to wrap up our tour here of Spotsylvania Battlefield over at the Spotsylvania Court House. Well, we're here in Spotsylvania Court House. We're right here in front of the courthouse itself. I know a lot of the brick has been replaced, but the 4 columns in the front our original. So here it is, Spotsylvania Court House. What's also interesting is there's a short little walking trail around here. We're not going to do all of it today on film, but I do want to take you past the courthouse here over to Lee's headquarters site during the battle. Of course, he moved around the battlefield, but this was his headquarters in this area. We'll find it. Here's a little plaque to the Battle of Spotsylvania, giving honor to all the combatants from 1927. That's when the parks were established. Wilderness, Spotsylvania, I think Fredericksburg also, Chancellorsville. And this tour, this walking tour, has lots of local information. There used to be a well here that was well known and was used in the time of the battle for the troops. Right here we have it, Lee's headquarters, the Battle of Spotsylvania. This is the spot right on the corner of the Fredericksburg Road and the Brock Road. Well, at the time of the battle, this building was Sanford's Tavern and Inn. And Lee actually used this as an observation point. Artillery shells were falling all over in the town here. Many of these buildings were hit, including this one. Sanford found, according to the plaque, that tree, that oak tree, famous oak tree on the battlefield that was cut in half. I think it was 22 inches in diameter. And from all the bullets, it was cut in half. He supposedly found that, according to the sign, and he took it to his home here. And then it was confiscated by the Union Army, and now I believe it's in the Smithsonian. An oak trunk cut in half. This here is the historic jail, not being used now. At the time of the battle, I think there were only 12 buildings or so in the town here. It's very small, and it's still a very, very small town. So here at the Berea Church, this became a hospital during the time of the battle. And according to the plaque here, it is likely that Jubal Early, Confederate general, used this as his headquarters. So we're really right across the street from Lee's headquarters, so they were close to each other. We're going to head over to the Confederate cemetery now. I made this little video of Spotsylvania Battlefield, hoping that it might inspire you to come and visit, see some of these sites. If you've been there already, terrific. I hope you enjoyed the film. If you've never been there, I hope you're inspired to go take a look at this chapter in our American history. Finishing up here in the Confederate cemetery. We did a film, a little video on the wilderness, and we finished at Fredericksburg at the Union Cemetery. So thanks for watching, and I hope you're inspired to read a little more. Again, take a look at that Gordon Ray book, Spotsylvania and Yellow Tavern, and he has another book on the wilderness. Terrific books. Check them out. Come out to the battlefield, take a look. Thank you for watching.